Yo, what is up, everybody? We are back here in the segment studio. This is episode 175. I got my buddy in the house, and not only my buddy, but my mechanic, the guy that I turn to when it comes to pretty much anything bike, especially suspension. I got legendary Mike Boon in the house. What's up, Mike?
How's it going, Mark? How's everybody out there?
Dude, it is good to see you, brother. I'm digging the new logo on the hat for the people on Spotify and iTunes. You can't see, but Mike's got a sick hat. Is that a piece of metal or is it just glossy like that?
Yeah, the camera's actually leather. It's
Oh,
one of
that's
those embossed leather logos.
that is dope. That is dope. For the people looking at that logo, that is an S and a T, ST tuned. And then what does ST stand for, Mike?
Yeah, so ST came from Spring Technology, actually, the suspension division of the business. So that's where ST comes from.
That is
So,
awesome. That
and then,
dude, I can't wait to get more into this. This is gonna be so good. We got a lot of people in the house. Like always, we start off the show with a thing called the whole shot, and it's the first person who makes a comment right at 6 o'clock. Typically, we have like some folks that are repeaters that come in here and they nail it. I think tonight, folks, oh my gosh, this is the first time. I think this is the first time this has ever happened. We had a comment from Electric Trail Surfer at 5:55. He says, Steve and JT. And then there is a gap. And Steve Dorsey out of Durango commented at 6:03. We missed it. The whole shot was missed tonight. Holy cow.
can't believe it.
That's the first. That's the first. I've not seen that before. Dang, you guys. Well, it's okay because I didn't have any prizes to give away tonight, but I did give away, Mike, on the last couple episodes. I had new glasses from Cali Protectives, the helmet company.
Yep, they make good stuff.
Yeah, Cali had just released this new riding glasses called the Solaris, and it's crazy. They come with 3 lenses. 2 of them are polarized. They come with a prescription insert in case you need to wear glasses. They come with a holder. They come with it's just great, a hard case, and then the 3 lenses that they have. It's like that yellow kind of poppy one for
Mhm.
under darker
Low
conditions.
light.
Yep,
Yep.
low light. They got a clear one and they have a reflective one. They got a black one too. Does that 4? Did I say 4? I may have said 4. But all of that for like $80 through Cali Protective. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah,
So
it's package.
it's a good package. I gave one of those away as a whole shot. But tonight we don't have a whole shot. I can't believe it. That is crazy. That is crazy. Steve Cigar says, I want a cigar. I want a cigar. he won one last time on one of the ones, and he actually flew out from Durango to Southern California, and I actually was able to give it to him in person, which was awesome. What is up, everybody out there in YouTube land, iTunes land, and Spotify? Um, Mike is here with his business ST Tuned. Um, for the folks who may not know you, tell them a little bit about who you are, kind of how this whole thing got started around suspension.
Yeah, so back in the day, I was a engineering major and kind of spent a lot of time, obviously, working on being an engineer, and so that kind of is a lot of the foundation of where things come from. And then been in the bike industry since the '90s, so around a long time. And then back in 2007, I had actually owned a shop. And at that point, we obviously needed a lot of service and things like that done. And I had a friend that at the time worked for Fox. And so he kind of was a little bit of my mentor in getting going with suspension as far
Nice.
as the actual service side and the specific things, kind of all service related and all the little details that you needed to pay attention to. On the mountain bike side of things, there's a lot of itty bitty little finicky parts inside of there that aren't in a lot of other suspensions like cars and motorcycles and things. So learned a lot from that. And that kind of was the foundation that started it all on the mountain bike side of things was back in 2007, starting with them and just kind of been doing it and, adapting with the new suspension technologies ever since.
Wow. That's kind of how it got started. What was your what caused you to be drawn to suspension? Was it the engineering background that drew you to it, or were you riding one day and you're like, dude, I'm just gonna unlock this thing, figure this out? Like, what's the draw there?
Yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with just the way my mind works and being interested in those kind of things, and the feeling of when your suspension is dialed in, and also being into motorcycles at the time. It was a huge thing on the moto side of things, but on the mountain bike, we were just kind of scratching the surface of what was being done out there. And there wasn't really any good programs, so that kind of piqued the interest, and there was a lot of people that were um, just didn't know what was going on with suspension. People were complaining about, hey, I bought a bike out of a shop and everything's just like locked out. So one of the things where things kind of started was as people would buy a bike from me, we would work on just doing like a real basic setup, kind of how our suspension setups started. If you've ever done one with us, I know you've done, where we just start with setting your air pressure, kind of your sag, and then a real basic compression and rebound setting, and made sure that the bike was balanced. And that's kind of just how we started. We didn't have any tests as far as sending people out on the trails like we do now, but I just at least sent them out the door with a balanced bike, and that was not something that had ever been done before. So that was kind of where that side of things started as well.
Wow, wow. Could you, like, being the guy that's tuning the bikes, I know when you and I had that session, in fact, for the folks on iTunes and Spotify, I'm bringing up a clip right here of me getting it done here on the Decoy. And there was like we had a makeshift course right there that's emulating a rock garden. Now, of course, today you are doing it live out on the trail. But
Yep.
when you were first tuning the suspension, was it cool to see like the aha moments when people would actually feel the change right there live?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd come in and a lot of times start with a baseline similar to where they were. And then we would make changes and they could really feel the difference of how much more planted the bike was, or it wasn't bouncing on them, things like that. So yeah, it was pretty cool to see people, their confidence just during that setup would grow almost every time. And they're just kind of aha moments of realizing how good suspension really is when it's doing what it's supposed to do. The confidence of riders was, just in that small period would go through the roof.
That's cool, man. That's cool. I bet that was fun to see everybody like light up like that. In fact, the work that you're doing out there has even made its way. The word on the street is all the way out to like Northern California. We got Electric Trail Surfer says, "Heck yeah, Mike is legendary suspension tuner and designer. Spring Tech and Speed Tech wheels are amazing. Spring Tech coil will change your bike and make it so plush." Yes, Spring
Yeah,
Tech.
I'm a huge fan of coil setups, especially on e-bikes. But yeah, all my bikes now are running coils front and rear. Just if you like that feel, and maybe part of it comes from the moto background, but I just love the feel of a coil, and it just seems to stick to the ground.
Yeah, let's talk about that too, real quick. Cause like I thought that when I was getting Spring Tech installed on my Decoy, I thought maybe I would lose some of the pop, like getting ready to boost off of stuff and like just trying to like pop the bike. I didn't necessarily feel that, but what I felt, like jumping wise, it felt fine. What I really felt was the way it tracked in like chatter. It
Yep.
just, the tires just like stayed to the ground. I felt like I was riding a trophy truck. Basically, is kind of like the image in my head is probably what I look like. I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. When you change from an air spring to a coil, you're eliminating a bunch of friction that happens inside based on a pressurized air seal, and that reduction in friction allows for a fork or a shock to move a lot freer, which means you're basically not delayed in your response to what's happening on the ground, and so your tires, your wheels can track the ground a lot better and improve your traction and make the bike track better as well.
Is that when people are like, or when people say it's that, the first part of the suspension when it first starts to move, like it's real supple and smooth. Is that what they're referring to when they're saying that? Like they want that stroke to be smooth all the way through. Is that kind of the goal when you're moving a coil? Or
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, they're complaining about small bump compliance. And so that's when we really start looking at it. But it's, that's where air shafts kind of have a little bit of that weakness, is trying to overcome that friction. And so those small movements are hard for those air seals to track compared to a coil.
okay, dude, I have no idea what you said just now, but it sounded amazing. It sounded amazing. Let's give a quick shout out to the chat here. We got people up in here that are visiting. We got Electric Trail Surfer out of the Lake Tahoe, Reno area. We got Octodad, Marty Richards. He says LFG, baby. You know what that means. And he is broadcasting, or he's out of New Zealand. We got Spokesman MTB, which is out of Durango, Colorado. We got the Dusty Dutchman. What is up, John? Good to see you, bro. He says, sup, boys. Dusty Dutchman is out of WI. Let's go. He also hosts a very cool creative thing. It's called Creator Camp. And he's got an awesome YouTube channel called The Dutchman's Den. Or no, The Dutchman's Den is his thing. The Dusty Dutchman is his is his channel. Pretty sick. Who else? I don't want to miss anybody. We got people here. People are asking questions too, so we'll definitely get to the questions. I think here's a question right here. Okay, what is this? The Dusty. He says, okay, I got my first new Fox fork with 2 damping knobs, and I'm lost. What the heck? What 2 and then he says, low speed, high speed? Shit, I don't know. Let's help us out with that, Mike.
Yep. So basically, what you've done is they have high speed and low speed compression and rebound settings on Fox dampers now. And what that does is it's referring to a lot of people. Here's a common misconception: is a lot of people think it refers to the speed that the bike is traveling and when that suspension affects those speeds. And the suspension can't actually tell how fast you're going. It only knows the shaft speeds of your fork or shock. And so kind of the typical rule of thumb is movements that occur as fast as your body can move are going to be low speed, and movements, shaft speeds that occur faster than your body can move are high speed. That's kind of a general rule of thumb, give or take. And then also high speed is going to also kind of set a baseline for you. So if you want to kind of firm up or soften up the whole platform as a whole, then firming up the high speed settings will do that.
Okay. So for him to set up like out of the box, what should he do? Like, what's a good thing to do for him to just start off?
Yeah, one of the common things you can do is a setup, if you're trying to set it up on your own, is called bracketing. And what you want to do is you kind of want to start on one end of the spectrum and then go to the other end of the spectrum and then go to the middle. So you'd go with maybe all the way closed and then all the way open and then halfway in the middle and kind of see which one feels better. Usually I would just tell people start in the middle and then start to go, maybe 3 clicks in one direction or another and see which one feels better. And if it's making an improvement going that direction, maybe give it a little bit more until it's no longer feeling better. And if it's feeling worse, then you kind of go back the other direction. You want to do this on an area that you can just constantly repeat over and over again, something that you can lap really quickly so that you can get a consistent comparison over and over. And you only want to make one change at a time. So if you're adjusting for your high-speed platform, you want to only adjust high speed. You don't want to do high and low simultaneously because you don't know which one ultimately made the effect that you wanted or didn't want. So you always only make one change at a time when you're adjusting suspension.
Okay, so basically, like, say you open it all the way. Is that counterclockwise or clockwise?
Yeah, so typically things are referenced from fully closed usually, but if you open all the way, that's going to open everything wide open. And so that on compression side of things is going to give you the least amount of support or the softest, most plush feel. And then as you need more support, you're going to add high and low speed back into that platform.
Okay.
So I like on compression, I like to start with things as open as possible and then start to add compression as needed for support.
Okay. Here comes a basic question for all the people out there listening. I know hopefully you have this question too, but I'm going to ask it because I'm not afraid. Is all the way open towards the minus? Is all the way open towards the plus? Which way do I turn that dial to start?
Yeah. So all the way open is lefty loosey. So it's to the minus.
To the minus. Okay, that's all the way open. All oil, all everything is open. Zero,
Yeah,
zero.
kind of a oversimplified explanation would be kind of think of a tube with a hole in it, and the oil flows through that hole, and all the way open means that that hole is wide open, as big as it can be, and that's usually lefty loosey. If you're talking like rock sharks, they use a rabbit and then a turtle, so it would be all the way to the rabbit side of things.
Okay.
It's gonna be all the way open, and then as you close that, usually that's clockwise in most cases. It's going to basically close the size of that hole in a sense and make it more difficult for oil to flow through.
Okay. And when you're closing the hole size, heading towards the plus or towards the turtle, does that mean that as you hit a bump, your suspension is coming back out slower from the hit? It's going up and is it coming back out slower or is it coming back out faster?
Yeah, so if you're closing the size of that port or stiffening up rebound, adding rebound damping, then you're going to be slowing it down. In this case, where you're referring to it coming back, that's rebound. And so in that case, making it more difficult for the oil to flow through is going to slow it down.
Slow it down. Okay. Okay. Good Lord. Okay. So on that note, I always get scared when we're out on the trails and there's like, there's a lot of jump trails that we have out here. And when I see people adjusting their suspension in the back, they're like, I feel like I need this to slow this down. I'm like, dude, make sure you're turning it the right way. Speeding it up, you can get buck wild out here.
Yeah, sometimes people can get confused. Luckily, most of the manufacturers are the same way, where it's kind of righty tighty is going to firm things up, and lefty loosey opens things up. So usually it's consistent. Where
Okay.
some people will get confused is on rebound because it's underneath the fork. They'll turn it the wrong way because they'll turn it the same way as they would the compression when they just reach underneath. And so you always need to turn the knob as if you are facing the knob.
Okay. So turn that if you have to spin that bike upside down so you're looking
Yep.
at it and
Yep.
go left or right.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because if you speed up that rebound too much, that's where we get in trouble. But then again, if you go too slow, that's what you call, I've heard you say on the trail, packing down, right?
Yeah, it's called packing. If the ideal suspension is when your suspension is able to move and track at the speed that you are traveling. And if your rebound is set too slow, what's happening is your suspension goes deeper and deeper with every hit because it does not have time to recover and rebound from each hit, and so that creates packing. And it can, if it's happening in the rear, can make the bike almost feel like a hardtail. If it's happening in the front, then it can make your fork feel pretty rigid, like you're not riding a suspension fork.
Got it. Got it. Because you're so far down in the travel. You're just not
Right.
using every.
Ultimately, it'll just get down to a point and just stick there, and basically, it's not moving anymore.
Phew, okay. Okay. Definitely don't want that. And then the high speed and low speed, say that one more time. The high speed and low speed, since there's two, like I'm looking at my fork and there's two. So I want to open it up all the way as I start off. And then I adjust one of those at a time and then go to the other one? Or does the high and low speed kind of go together?
Yeah, so there's always this is where it gets a little bit complicated. There's always a little bit of crosstalk between everything, meaning that high speed will affect a low speed and vice versa. So if you're trying to do it on your own, a lot of times take everything and kind of set it in the middle is a lot of times my recommendation, and then make one adjustment at a time. Maybe starting with high speed because that's a lot of times going to be your foundation is going to be set with your high speed. So start with your high speed setting and then move to your low speed. And your low speed is going to give you, especially if you're like a big park guy or something, and you're talking about how the bike feels like it just squishes on you on takeoff, you're going to need a little bit more support. If you're somebody who doesn't do a lot of big park bike jumping, things like that, you're not doing big drops, you're going to not need as much support because you're going to be more interested in smaller hits, small bump compliance. You're not going to have those huge impacts. So setups are going to be different. There is no one setup for everybody. Your setup is going to be based on you, your bike, the type of riding you do, the skill level you're at, things like that.
Gosh, man. Okay. That's good. Thank you for that. I appreciate it because it's like, and thank you for asking that question, Dusty. I appreciate that, JT. That was a good one. Let's see. We got this. We got modern suspensions are complicated. I want to do a deep dive on them, but I am nowhere near educated enough. Can we kind of take modern suspensions and somewhat simplify it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it is complicated, kind of I tried to oversimplify it a little bit with the compression. It's actually or the compression and rebound, using it as like a analogy of a tube with a hole in it. It's actually way more complicated than that. There's actually valves inside that we're stiffening up. Um, but if you really want to deep dive into things, a really good place if you want to kind of go do some research on your own is Steve from Vorsprung Suspension has a series called Tuesday Tunes, and they go back several years. And he gives some really good explanations about all kinds of things suspension, from philosophies to bracketing of setting up your suspension, high speed versus low speed. Um, some of the different technologies out there, poppet valves versus shim stack valving, things like that. So that's always, if you're trying to educate yourself from scratch, that's a really good place to kind of that I can point people to start. And Steve has a real similar philosophy that I do, as far as the foundation of the way suspension works.
Okay, gotcha. Vorsprung suspension. I see it right here. Bring it up
Yep.
for the people that are here on wait, where'd it go? It just went away. There it is. Tuesday tune. The Tuesday tune, Vorsprung suspension. Okay. Great place. Looks like small increments too, and like he's got this broken down into chapters and everything.
Yeah.
So okay,
Yep.
good way to do it.
Very,
Deep dive.
very good. He does things really well. You can kind of incrementally follow his Tuesday tunes and learn more and more about how things work
Wow.
until he starts speaking over your head. Because he does
Wow.
get pretty advanced as you follow him along. So
Wow, that's very cool. Thank you for asking that question, Steve. Electric Trail Surfer saying the Spring Tech coil for the front shock is way better than the Vorsprung Smash Pot. It is a deal game changer for the chunk. Okay, let's talk about this. So in comparison, I mean, like head to head, this is probably coming from somebody. Well, probably not just coming from somebody. This guy's, I'm sure, done head to head because this guy's very very intelligent about all the bike parts and has a lot of experience. Um, why is he saying that it's way better than Smash Pot and it's a deal? I wonder why. Why is he saying
he's biased. He's probably ridden both and had to pay the difference. So
that?
the Spring Tech system is a lot more simple, and we use a lot more stock parts, whereas the Vorsprung Smashpot is a complete standalone unit that replaces the entire air chamber side. And I tried to, when designing the Spring Tech system, try to keep the cost down a little bit, make it a little bit more affordable. And so we use a lot more of the stock parts, but it does something a little bit unique. My system is able to be completely linear, which is what most of the coil conversion systems out there are, or not most of the coil conversions, but most of the stock coil systems. Um, so like Olin's runs a coil that you can get stock, and the Marzocchi Z1 also has a coil option. Those are going to be completely linear systems. And my system, what's cool about it is you can run it linear, or you can run it progressive. And what you do is you do that by simply adding a seal to our spring perch. And what it does is it now creates an air seal just below the spring, so that as the spring compresses, it builds up air pressure in the shock as that stroke starts to occur, so that you get the benefits of that deeper hit support that you wouldn't normally get out of a coil. The Smash Pot does have a progression system, but it doesn't start getting progressive until the last 20% of the stroke. So you have to get a lot deeper in before you start getting that extra support. So that's part of the difference. The other difference is mine's about half the weight.
Got it. And price wise, how are they different price wise?
About half again. So the Smash Pot's going to run you roughly 400-ish. My system will run you, a little over 200.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I remember when you installed it on my bike, I felt like I had a sleeper bike because it still looked like the regular Fox 38, but I knew what was inside. I was like, moo ha ha.
Yeah, they still look completely stock. Yep.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. And then somebody was saying to me, like, what if you don't like it? Can you switch it back or is it totally gone? It was
Yeah, so that's one of the cool things about the system is that it is reversible. So it does not scratch the inside of your stanchions, which is what makes most of the systems non-reversible. The new Vorsprung system is now also reversible because they have a plastic sleeve that covers the spring. And so that makes those reversible as well. So that's one of the advantages. Both of the new systems there are reversible. If you decide you'd want to go back to air, you can do that.
That's cool. That's cool. Awesome. Thank you, Electric Trail Surfer, for that question. The Dusty Dutchman says, damn, RIP Revel Bikes. What is going on there? Did Revel go under? Is this
I don't
new?
know. That's I thought I just saw that they were at
Sea Otter?
Sea Otter.
Damn,
Yeah,
Revel Bikes. Oh man, tell us, you guys.
I hope it's not true. They
I hope
have one of the suspension designs that I absolutely love. I have a Canfield as one of my that's my enduro bike, and Revel patents the that Canfield design for their suspension, which is amazing. So hopefully those rumors are not true.
I
That'd be
know, right?
a bummer.
I know. I mean, I know the bike industry's been tough, but God, I hope not. Speaking of Canfield, one of the brothers who broke off and created his own. Have you seen the new Vampire bikes?
Yeah,
That's
yeah, Chris had, when he split with his brother, he's been working on this project. It's a pretty unique bike with, a bike with different linkage and whatnot to adjust travels to kind of make a one bike that can do everything with some simple leverage adjustments. Pretty cool
yeah,
design.
yeah, man. I hope he's killing it because it's like that's the first bike that's like that out there. I believe. I don't think there's anything like that.
Yeah, I'm not aware of anything else that's quite like that one.
Well, that's pretty cool. Here's a question for you, Mike. And I know this isn't part of the main focus of the business, but he says, Mike, for SpeedTech wheels, do you use double butted spokes or and 32 hole J bend? Those wheels are killer.
Yeah, so the idea is definitely to make them strong. So typically 32 hole and J bend. Also, usually they're a 14, 15 double butted spoke on that. So the idea is that I have a lot of customers that travel worldwide, and I wanted something that if somebody's over somewhere else and you break a spoke, who knows what happens. Things can break. I want it to be serviceable anywhere. I don't want a proprietary spoke or something funky going on there and they're stranded without a wheel set. So yeah, we use standard, and 32 holes significantly stronger than 28, especially on e-bikes and whatnot. I don't really understand why e-bikes are coming with 28 spokes, other than a few cents of cost saving, penny pinching that the manufacturers are putting together. And in my opinion, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
For
right.
sure, 32 spokes is the way to go.
Yeah, makes sense. Speaking of the wheels, now I know you'll do them if somebody orders it, contacts you and wants to do a build out. You did an amazing one for MTB Sheen Queen. That it looks so sick. Tell the folks listening in and tuning in, what did you build there for Kim?
Yeah, so Kim had some special requests. Obviously, being the Queen of Sheen, she wanted some pretty shiny bling on her bike. So we got her some Industry 9 purple hubs. And then she wanted the oil slick spokes and nipples. So I had to
Ooh,
special order those. And then she wanted an oil slick decal laced up to our rims. And so I had to custom cut these oil slick decals, which are color changing in the light. So if you've seen them in person as they spin, they kind of change color. They do
so,
a purple, blue, green,
so
um, but a beautiful wheel set for sure.
oh
Yeah,
man, I
that was a fun project.
yeah, and then we took that straight out to Luisenyo, and we were downhilling out there, and just like the sound of her hub was insane. And then watching that bike reflect off the sun when it was on the shuttle, it was crazy. Oh my god! Okay, this just in. This is from JT Jonathan. He just texted me. He says Revel bikes to shut down amid industry challenges. That is from Pink Bike.
Wow,
Holy crap,
that's disappointing to hear for sure. But
dude! That's yeah.
unfortunately, I think we're going to see a lot more of that coming. I think we're at the beginning. Um,
Whoa.
things are rough out there. I can tell you that for sure. I think
Gee.
in 5 years, I think the industry is going to look a bit different than it does now.
And a lot of these bikes, aren't they like made overseas too? So won't tariffs affect all this stuff on top of it? Like, holy crap. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, there will be that. And what a lot of people don't understand is that the tariffs are actually paid by the companies when they bring them in. So, like my hubs and rims are made in Taiwan. Taiwan is not the rim manufacturers are not the ones paying those tariffs. I'm the one having to pay that tariff when it comes in.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
definitely does. We're the ones taking the hit over here on that one for sure.
Right. And the margins are already low, so it's not gonna
Yep,
save anybody anything. It's gonna have to get passed on. That the cost of goods are just gonna go up. Oh,
absolutely. And we're seeing, this bounce back from COVID where there was a huge shortage of product, and now we're on the other end of that. And there's a bunch of used bikes being dumped, and a lot of people aren't buying new product because there's so much barely used product out there that people are snatching up. So it's making it real hard on manufacturers for sure.
wow. Crazy times. Wow, Revel. Damn, Revel. Those are sick bikes. What was you were saying they make something that you really enjoy?
Well, the suspension design is they patented the Canfield, the CBF linkage, which is a really unique linkage. The idea is that you don't have chain growth because the pivot is right at the top of the front chainring. And so, with that occurring, it's supposed to limit what we call brake jack and pedal kickback. And that makes for a much more active suspension on the bike, whether you're on the brakes or you're pedaling or you got your pedals level and you're hitting things.
Wow.
It keeps the suspension moving a lot more active.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I felt both of those words when you said it, brake jack and pedal. It's like, oh yeah, I felt all those before.
Yep.
Yeah, closed up. Oh man. Okay, Octodad saying dialed in suspension, tires, and bike fit is complex. Yeah, so okay. What he's saying there, dialed in suspension, tires, and bike fit is complex. That's like the ultimate science. You figure those out, you're a happy camper. But of those things, which one would you say is the easiest one to tackle?
The easiest one to tackle, phew, none of those are probably tires is the easiest one to tackle. Find a tire that you like. Um,
Right.
get your air pressures adjusted properly. That's probably the easiest one to tackle. It's also the only thing that's in contact with the ground, so it's actually really important. So
Very,
it's an integral part of your suspension, the flex that happens in the tires and the air pressure and the particular tire you're running. Super
very,
important.
very good point. Very good point. Yeah, dude, and to this day, I don't know for the folks out there if they do or not, but inserts or no inserts, what are you running, Mike?
I'm running no inserts. I've tried writing some inserts, and I just don't like the feel. To me, it almost feels like, in a sense, like the suspension ramps up. It just feels a little bit harsh. I like the suppleness that I get from a fully aired up tire,
Nice.
and I like the traction that I get from a fully aired up tire. So I'm kind of partial to that.
Yeah, same. I haven't ran inserts, but I've definitely cased my fair share of stuff where I hear it. I'm like, oh, that's not
Yeah.
good. But I mean, so far I've been good with like I run 20, 21, 22 in the front for these trails out here and about 25 in the back for PSI. How about you? Where are you at?
Yeah, I'll change a little bit from bike to bike and tire to tire, but kind of in that ballpark, usually somewhere in the middle of low to mid 20s. In some cases, I might go a little bit towards high 20s if I'm on a super soft casing tire on my trail bike and I'm going to be hitting some gnarlier stuff. I might boost up a little bit of air pressure just because those casings are super, super soft on those tires and they're going to flex a lot.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Don't want to get that tear a hole in that sidewall
Yeah, I
out
don't
in
want to get out or smash the rims or,
Definitely not smash throughs.
yeah.
Hey Mike, hello? Must have a bad connection here. Cedar is saying, I've been running coil rear for about 5 years now, and it's been super responsive and easy to manage. I recommend highly. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Coil has been something that has been making a huge comeback the last handful of years. Everything was air suspension, and the coil has been kind of brought back to life. And once guys have experienced it, most of them they don't ever want to go back to air. Um, as I think you're probably in that same boat. Once you've
yeah,
experienced coil, it's just a completely different feel, and
yes,
it's kind of, the funny thing is they're trying to find that coil feel out of air shocks.
Yeah.
And so now it's just run a coil.
Yeah, yeah, the coil it's nice. I mean, I noticed a big difference when so the decoy, the push started throwing up oil when I was at Santiago Oaks.
Yep.
This was a couple months back, and I was like, "Damn!" So I threw in what came with the bike is like a Fox. I think it's a was it a Fox Float Air?
What X2 probably.
But Float X2, I put that in the back, and then like car crash where you come off that rock drop and you have all the braking bumps before you get to that or the second roller,
Yep.
that big roll.
Yep.
That section was I was like, it was so violent as I was going through there. It was shaking so hard. The back end was like moving all over the place. And at first I was like, damn, is this the brake bumps? And then everybody else on the squad had coil in the back and they just like flew right through that section. And I was like, "Oh, maybe I need some adjustments here in the back." But that I felt it there,
For
definitely.
sure. Yeah, I don't think we've dialed in your X2 on that one either, but yeah,
Mm.
I rode it about 2 weeks ago, and I was on my coil, and I thought people were talking about how chopped up it was, and I was like, "I thought it ran pretty smooth."
I know. We're like cruising through there like monster trucks. It's crazy. Oh, JT is saying his bike with the dual is saying he goes, "Oh, and it's on a hardtail." So he does have a hardtail on the back. So all this the compression, double compression is on the front.
Yeah,
So for him, same thing, doesn't matter. Start all wide open and then start his clicks.
that's
See
where
what
I would
feels best.
recommend. Yep. Yeah. And first, set your air pressure. I will say Fox is usually pretty accurate with their air pressure recommendations for the most part. So a lot of times, I start with running the Fox recommended air pressure, adjust as needed. But a lot of times, I've found their air pressure to be pretty accurate. Their clicker adjustments, however, are a different story. I don't at all follow the Fox recommendations for clickers.
Okay.
They don't seem to be very accurate.
Consistency is kind of all over the place with
Yeah,
those.
exactly. Yep.
Okay, okay, got it. Good to know. Good to know. And then as far as SAG, still 30% recommended
Yeah,
ish.
so SAG is one of those tricky areas where there's a lot of riders. It can be a really good starting point for a lot of guys, but it's certainly not something I live and die by. I want to see a minimum amount of SAG, or I'm sorry, I want to see a maximum amount of SAG. So if I say rear shock, we're looking at 28 to 30% for like an enduro type of bike. That's the most I want to see. If you're a big sender, you're hitting things a lot harder, you're doing a lot of really big jumps all the time, we may reduce that to 2025. But I'm going to focus more on just the spring rate and the progression that it needs to give you the support that you need more than where your SAG is going to be. So it is a good starting point for a lot of people. But it's definitely not an end all be all. But yeah, to answer that question, in the neighborhood of 28 to 30 for an enduro type of bike. Trail bikes, you may be more in the 25% for rear shock. And then forks, typically I'll set them up as a starting point of no more than around 20% on the fork.
On the fork. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Very cool. Thank you for that. That makes sense. That's awesome. Um, Dusty's saying JT saying so high speed is more trail chatter and low speed would be harder hits like drops.
Well, yes and no. High speed will definitely be in trail chatter because the shock is going to be moving really quickly. And so you need those shaft speeds really high. So you need the shock to be a little more open on the high speed to be able to keep up with that. Where this gets confusing is people think harder hits like drops, you're going to be more low speed, and it's actually opposite. Drops, things like that are actually going to be high speed as well because when you have that big slap landing, when you hit, the shaft speeds are incredibly high. And so that support in that case is going to come from high speed also. So your
Right.
low speed is going to happen more from like your flowy, rolly sections, support coming into bermed corners, support in jump takeoffs, things like that.
Interesting. And that makes sense. You're right. Because when you come off a drop and you land, that shaft is like it'll be moving.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
super high shaft speeds.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. Thanks for clearing that up because I would have thought the same thing. And that's why my landings are so horrific. Steve is saying, how does oil viscosity play into this? And can oils be mixed and matched for viscosity?
Well, we try not to mix and match the oils, but we can change oils for a different tune. For example, I've got a shock in right now that's going to be going for a rider that's a little under 100 pounds. And so we're going to actually drop the oil viscosity from a 4 weight down to a 2.5 weight for this rider, as well as some custom tuning, because they're definitely well under the fact. Most shocks are tuned from the factory for riders roughly around 180 pounds, for valving and whatnot. So in this case, yes, you can change the oil to either speed up or slow down, or kind of change the range of parameters that the suspension will work within. So for example, going with a thicker oil, like say we went from a 5 weight to a 10 weight, that viscosity is going to be thicker. That is going to give you more support or slow down compression. It'll make a firmer compression, and it'll also slow down rebound as well.
Interesting. Wow. Just by changing the viscosity, that's what it
Just
does.
by changing the viscosity of the oil, yeah. And if you go lighter, then obviously that'll soften up compression, but it'll make rebound faster as well.
Whew. Yeah, go thicker for mine, please. Rebound scares me. It shouldn't, but it just does. No, thank you for answering. That's a good one. That's a great question too. JT is saying, so if I wanted to have a stiffer pedaling platform, but also wanted plushness in say roots and rocks at higher speeds, I would have my low speed closed and my high speed open ish.
I would give you a little bit. It's funny. Like RockShox closes their lockouts occur with high speed. And so when they close their high-speed circuitry, that kind of locks out the RockShox systems. And that's because the RockShox, like I mentioned earlier, or the high-speed, like I mentioned earlier, is sets your platform. So if you want a firmer pedaling platform, you would actually probably close more your high-speed compression on that.
Okay.
But closing low speed will also firm it up as well. But if you close some high speed, it closes the whole thing up. It firms up the whole platform, both high and low speed.
Oh, so high speed kind of takes the whole thing.
Yeah. So if say low speed is set here and high speed is set here, it'll take this whole thing and move it up this way. It takes the whole
Got it.
stiffens it up that way.
The whole adjustment is
That whole
based.
range will just get moved up.
God. Okay. Hope that makes sense, JT. That makes sense to me when you showed. For the folks on iTunes and Spotify, Mike just basically took his left hand, right hand, put it about a couple inches above each other, and then moved the whole thing up. So if you're adjusting the high speed, it'll move just the whole baseline goes up.
Correct.
Your settings are still the same, but everything ramps up there. And then for
the whole thing up.
the whole thing up, yeah.
Yeah.
And then JT is also, I think, where he's getting at in this is that bike in his area in Wisconsin. Maybe he's talking more like XC trails where there are not a lot of big hits. There are some jumps, and then they do have some cool routes and stuff. But yeah, a lot of high speed in the berms and XC style, I think is what he's going for there. So okay,
that can also vary a little bit from manufacturer to manufacturer as well. So different designs will do some different things as well. Like I mentioned, RockShox does their lockout through their high speed circuitry system. So it'll vary a little bit, but
okay. I can imagine when JT got the bike, he's like, "Whoa, there's
look
at these dials. There's like 3 dials here. There's a big one, a middle one, and a little one." At least that's how I thought when I saw my first time. I was like, "What the hell? I'm not touching any of this stuff." Mike, Rich on 2 wheels, what's up, dude? Good to see you. He says, what are the benefits or disadvantages between a coil versus an air rear shock? I know we kind of touched on this, but yeah, what are the benefits and or disadvantages?
First off, I got to say, Rich, what's going on, man? It's been a long time. We got to go ride together up at Sky Park for sure. Yeah, benefits. They're very different. Typically, a coil is going to run a bit more linear and is going to be a softer feel. It's going to be a more plush feel in general. Air is going to give you a little bit more support and definitely a bit more of a feel of support. in areas. That's where some of the coils are now starting to have progressive coils available to try to emulate some of that support. But rear shocks, the air is going to definitely give you a little bit more of kind of like that mid to deep stroke support, and coils have the potential to lack a little bit in that mid to end of stroke support potentially. So
God, I remember you showed me the graph on that, like the coil was like very linear, like
yep,
it feels very nice throughout the whole stroke, whereas air just like it starts off kind of nice and then it ramps up real quick
yes,
for the
yeah.
support. um, okay, awesome question, Rich. And then I hope that helped too. Let's see, Electric Trail Surfer saying, Mike, I have a 190 Zeb Ultimate and a 180 Super Deluxe Ultimate on my new e-bike. I have the L low speed compression all the way open and high speed compression in the middle. My spring and air is set for my weight. Is this a good setting?
Good setting is going to depend on how it feels. Uh, if it feels good, then I would say it's a good setting. If the bike's staying on the ground and tracking well, then I would say your setting is good. The downside to that is whenever you have something at one extreme or the other, either all the way open or all the way closed, you lack some adjustability in that range, obviously. So that's the downside to that. If you're wanting to put yourself more in the middle, which is ideal to be able to be somewhere closer to the middle of the adjustment range, then that might require some custom valving. But yeah, saying is it a good setting or a bad setting, that's gonna depend on you, your riding style, the feel. There's a lot of factors that play into that. But I will just say, yeah, if you are at one extreme or the other, and that's kind of where you like the feel, you might want to consider a custom valving to give you some more adjustability in that range.
And when he's saying he sets his low speed compression all the way open, what's he going for there when the high speed compression's in the middle? What's the LSC going for when it's all the way open? Just flushness?
Yeah, that's going to make it a little bit more plush and less support. He probably is not doing a lot of big hits, would be my assumption. If you're doing a lot of big hits, drops, bigger jumps, things like that, then typically your low speed compression is going to be the support that you need for those kind of environments. Also high speed cornering as well, berm corners, things like that. Typically low speed compression open will cause the front end to dive if it's too soft. So that's kind of one of the big telltales is if people are going, I'm coming into turns and I feel the front end diving on me as I'm coming into the turn. Typically that means we need to add low speed compression in that case. So if he's comfortable with that and it's all the way open, that would kind of be my impression, is that either it's set up, it's valved really firm for him, or he's not doing that kind of riding. He could also be a really lightweight rider. I don't remember. I've probably set him up at some point, but
I know he rides North Star, so maybe that's just where he has it now. But then in park season, he gives more support to that low speed compression component, possibly. Not sure. But yeah, that's okay. Thanks for handling that one. That's good. That's good. So it's about feel, but then also just like realizing where you're riding, how you're riding, and what's happening to the bike. So if the nose starts to dive, then you're going to want to close up that valve a little bit, right? This is what
absolutely. That's one of the telltales. Yeah, if you're coming into corners and you're wanting that front end support, but it's kind of diving and you're feeling like it's going away from you, then you want to firm that up.
Click
And
towards the positive sign.
yeah, you can address that. And the other way you can address that possibly is with air pressure or spring rate. But if everything else is good and that's just your issue, is the front end feels too divey, you're not bottoming it out or whatever, and it's just diving on you, then low speed compression in that area is where you want to firm it up for sure.
One of those things that I know that we do when you're setting us up for the folks that you set up, we do a lot of like bouncing, like as equal as possible out there, and you sit there and you watch us and you watch the bike to make sure it's like diving both equally, very balanced. And I can only assume that this would be part of that deal, is when you're looking at where the settings are.
Yeah, so just kind of it's a baseline that we're looking for at the very beginning is we want to make sure that the bike is moving in uniform straight up and down front and rear. And I'm looking to make sure that the front or the rear is not moving or diving more than the other or rebounding faster than the other or slower than the other. So we want a bike that moves up and down balanced, and we're not having a bike that porpoises as we hit things that can cause bucking and unexpected nosedives that can push the front, things like that. So that's just a baseline we're looking for, is that balance front to rear. That doesn't mean that's where we're going to end up. If we adjust one, we will adjust the other end though, so that the bike remains balanced. But yeah, at that point, what we're really looking for is just front to rear balance when we're doing that test.
Yeah, I always remember that's like at the beginning of it.
Yep,
So
that's the
start
very beginning.
there, and then it gets gnarlier.
Yeah.
Steve was saying, thank you for that link. He's in there checking out that link. Octodad is saying Coila or Coil A. Maybe he's gonna finish that. Coil A. Maybe that's what he's saying. I don't know. I'm putting words in his mouth. Sorry, Marty. Steve is in that link. He says, damn, wow, this channel goes deep. I'm gonna watch a lot of these. That's very good. Very
Yeah,
good.
there's a lot of information in there for sure. You can if you're a techno geek, you can go way over your head in that stuff for sure.
That's really cool. I'd love to be at the point where I can, and writing with you more, I'm learning every time we go. There's something that happens, and a lot of times it may not be suspension, maybe my chain, maybe something else. but yeah, like I'd love to be able to know exactly how the bike feels and to adjust to the new trail. Like, oh, I need extra this, I need less support, I need more support,
Yeah, and as your riding improves, your settings are going to change. It isn't a one-time set it and forget it. It's a dynamic setting. We've done many riders where I've set them up as they're a beginner rider, and they've progressed every year. We've had to do a suspension setup because they've gotten so much better that their spring rates have had to get firmer, and they need, more. They need a faster rebound, and they need more support out of their compression. So it's definitely not a set once and forget it, especially if you're a progressing rider. That's a dynamic thing. Your setup is going to change as you change and improve. You're going to put a lot greater forces through the bike than you were when you were new. So that's why one of the issues I've sometimes run into is I have people come in and I'm like, why are you set up this way? And they go, oh, well, such and such pro rider's bike is set up with these settings. And I'm going, well, but you're not that pro rider. I guarantee you he can generate way more forces than you can. And so that's, one of the things is your setup needs to be specific to you and where your skill level is at and your bike that you're on. So you can't take somebody else's settings and just slap them onto your bike and be like, okay, I'm dialed. It doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah, I got Brady to bring her settings. I'm not riding like that. My bike doesn't feel good. Oh man, what's up? The Ferals are on. He says, "What's up, Mike and Mark?"
Woo! What's going on, guys?
Good to see you guys.
I wait to see you guys.
I love it. I love it. Octodad has a question for you. Do you sell in New Zealand? Can they get Spring Tech in New Zealand?
I am currently not set up to go international. So yeah, currently just in the U.S.
Might have to make a trip out here, Marty. It'll be worth it. Take you on some cool trails. Get you some new suspension. Just saying. Electric Trail Surfer saying CBF is great. Chris Capefield, yes, definitely. Emmanuel Jimenez, yes, that's the guy who won the whole shot last time. He says, "Dang it, late to the game today." Steve Dorsey hit right. Empty Froze, yay, Mike. What's up, guys? Trail Monster out of Arizona. What's up, fellow podcaster? He's here. Says hi, y'all. Bikeologist _MTB says, Mike, suspension guru. Yes, very, very cool. Steve Dorsey putting up his tire. He's going 22 PSI, 22 in the front, 22 in the back. Not bad. Yeah. Electric Trail Surfer saying, I run 20 front and rear. Oh, he's 2020, but such core pro front and rear DH casing. Maxxis Assegai front and rear for him. Ooh, ultimate grip attitude. Steve Dorsey, I switched to 25-25 recently to mitigate issues with flats, burps, but I had to switch back to 22-22 because I was having a hard time with tires slipping on the sifter stuff.
Softer, yeah, definitely lower. The lower tire pressure you can run, the more grip you're going to have. But again, the softer the tire pressure, the more risk of pinch flats and smashing rims and things like that you have. So
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
been one of the guys I know that have switched and been running the new Schwalbe radial tires. You're running a higher air pressure by 2 to 3 psi, but it's given the same kind of traction as running the lower air pressure just due to the way that tire flexes. I've heard amazing things about that. So it's a tire I need to get on and test out. I haven't done that yet, but I've heard amazing things about that. About
Yeah. That's
tires, the
which
radial tires.
which one was that again, Mike Schwalbe?
The Schwalbe, yeah, the Schwalbe, the radial tires.
Sick. Those look sick too. I've been pretty stoked on the Versus tires because they hold the air so well. Like I sometimes I forget. I get lazy. I don't even check my tire pressure because it
Yeah.
holds it. And then when I do, I'm like, see, why'd I even spend the time checking it? It's been 3 days and it's still at 2125.
And they have a really strong casing as well, so that certainly helps on those for sure.
Definitely helps. And it's been tested to case, and I've cased the heck out of those things, and I'm still 2125.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many good tires out there. Steve George saying, so more sag, but what about clapping?
More sag. What about clapping? Well, I'm not sure. More sag. That's relative to what you're running. When you're talking about bottoming out, again, that's why I said definitely. Sag is an initial starting point for setup, but it's definitely not an end all be all. You're talking some of these more advanced guys, Red Bull Rampage guys, guys running Kong and some of those more advanced trails. I assure you, they're not running 20% front, 30% rear, because they are going to be bottoming out and clapping out the suspension. So again, that's where your spring rate and things like that needs to be set. That's a good starting point, 20 and 30% relatively. But if your skill level and the type of riding you're doing is going to be bottoming that out, then you need a stiffer spring rate to accommodate that. So your setup your spring rate needs to be adjusted for the type of riding and the skill level you're at for sure. So I don't want to see more than 20% up front and 30% in the rear typically.
Okay.
So
Just more towards the upper end of that range is what you were saying by more sag. So closer to
yeah,
30%.
I start there, and if we need to firm things up, then we'll go firmer until you get the support that you need, so that you're not bottoming it out. So yeah, those are your general starting points. That's definitely not a hard number that you follow for sure.
The worst is when you're like completely stiff and ready for the big drops and everything and have all the air in there and everything's great, but then just the small bump compliance is awful.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had several guys that they have multiple bikes. They're like, this is my trail bike, and this is my park bike, and then this is my huge huck bike. And each of those bikes gets very different setups. Their big huck bike is incredibly stiff and is much slower and a lot of compression support. Whereas their trail bike will set up a bit more linear, and then their park bike is a little bit more in the middle and in between. So setups, again, very different depending on what you're doing.
The bikes that I have in the garage, Mike, that haven't come to see you yet, they all think that they're the trail and the enduro bike. They're like, no, I'm the trail bike. No, I'm the trail bike. You're the enduro bike, because I don't know what I'm doing. But the other bikes that have come by to see you, they're like, dude, we're the Huck bike, we're the enduro bike. They're very clear on their lanes. That dude says, what about ones like Cane Creek that has coil plus air? Ooh, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so Cane Creek a couple years ago released a shot called the Tygon, and it was funny because they released the Tygon around the same time that I developed the coil conversion that I developed, and so they basically kind of work together in that same idea, where once that coil starts to compress, you're getting all the benefits of the coil, but it is progressive through the entire stroke. So it essentially makes a fully progressive coil. Which is a very cool system. I'm a huge fan of Cane Creek products, and I'm a big fan of the Tygon as well. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that for sure.
That's really cool. That's really cool. But your coil we can add air to, because I was able to add like 10 more psi to mine, because I was diving just a little bit at Greer on one of the takeoffs. I'm like, damn, Mike, every time I compress into this and I'm coming at an angle, I was diving a bit. and added 10 more psi to that front coil, and it felt good. I haven't had a problem since.
Yeah, and you can do that's one of the advantages of being able to add that in, and you could do that same thing with the King Creek Tygon. That rear shock is the same type of idea where you can add up to from 0 to 35 psi to make that progression a little bit more, so you can adjust that progression.
Nice.
So
Basically taking that linear line and just moving it up a little bit.
yeah, you're taking that linear coil, but you're adding it to make it progressive. Um,
Got it.
so it's no longer linear once you have that compressed air. Air always compresses progressively. That's just the
Got it.
nature of the way air works. As
Okay.
as you compress it, it becomes exponential, and it requires more and more force to continue to compress air. Um,
Gotcha.
so when you
Gotcha.
add that little bit, but what we're doing is we're working with such low air pressures that you're still getting the benefits of the coil because you don't have a huge amount of air pressure built up against a seal to create that stiction or seal friction that occurs. You don't have
Yeah.
to overcome that force.
Dude, that first, like, breaking that stiction is always rough,
Yeah.
when it's, like, first breaking, and then when you go to a coil, you're like, "There isn't that." It's just smooth, it just runs up and down the linear, it feels great, versus that stiction, it's like, God, when you first break through it, and then you're like, "Okay, this feels good," but yeah, that first part's like, "Whew, I know what he's talking about now, I know what he's talking about."
Yeah.
Tremology, interesting stuff, interesting stuff. Electric Driver saying, "Neil," they're saying, "Hi." And then, Electric Trail Surfer saying, "Hey, thanks, Mike, for that feedback on that." Says, Mike is better to use 30" Mike, sorry, it's a question. Mike, is it better to use 30 millimeter wheels versus 35? I feel like the 30 millimeter is more durable and has a higher weight limit.
It's going to vary, I would say, based on, the riding that you're doing and the rim manufacturer, but a lot of it is going to depend on the riding that you're doing and the tires that you're running. 30 has become a lot of an industry standard for a lot of bikes out there. But then 35 is kind of the other industry standard when you want to go with like the wide trail tires. I have both setups on multiple bikes. I actually really like the 35. The rims that I make, the 35 is actually a more durable rim than the 30. And what it does is by allowing that extra rim width, it has a higher air volume to the same tire. And so you actually have a better feel to the tire. The tire is less prone to roll, and the tire can move or compress a little bit more because of the extra air volume that's in there.
Got it. Very cool. Very cool. MTB Farrells is saying, "Hey, Ed rides Schwalbe and Cody and Cindy rides Versus." So hey, a little bit of a mixed
Can't go
bag there.
wrong. They're all good tires.
Both are very, very good.
Tires, yep.
MTB Tank is saying, "Wicked." He says, where did Tank say it? Tank said something here earlier. Sorry, Tank, I saw it. You were talking about Mike and something that he did. Dang it, I lost it. How did I lose it? This is what happens when Joey can't make it to the show. I'm like trying to push buttons back here. I'm like, I don't know which button I'm pushing. Tank, type it in again. I know you had said something about the setup there, or something about the air. I think he was saying something about the air. Electric Trail Server saying Spring Tech takes 10 psi and you can adjust progression. I really like mine on my 38. Oh no, I think we lost Mike Boon. He's coming. He's coming back. I hope he's coming back because I don't know how to answer the questions around suspension. We lost his feed, but he should be back. But I do want to say this might be a good time to talk about. I know we've been talking about a lot about suspension, but one of the fun things that you can do with Mike is that you can set up a suspension specialized tune to your riding style. He actually goes out to the trail with you and watches you. In fact, they do it now at a place called Santiago Oaks out here in Southern California, where he watches you and he takes you through like a rock garden section, very like chunky area, and then helps adjust the bike that way. Then he heads over to drops and then watches how you and the bike handle on the drops with that setup, makes some tune-ups there, and then finally over to the jump section at the top of that area, and he watches you jump and he makes some tune-ups there. It used to take about an hour, I think, is what it was before when we were doing this, and I now that he's live on the trails with like live active trails, I think the setup there is about the same time frame, or maybe even a little bit longer. So if you do that, you definitely have to set up an appointment with Mike so he can get out there. Prices on that, I don't know what they are now, but to have a personalized setup like that with everything, I think it was. We can ask Mike here. He's back. I see him backstage. We'll bring him back on for you. Hey, Mike.
Hey, not sure what happened there. Computer's not working anymore, so I popped back on my cell phone.
Awesome, man. I see you look good, sound good. When you went off, I was talking about your personalized suspension setup, and I was letting everybody know that you do that, and you go out to Santiago Oaks now. You kind of see where they are. We talked about the rock garden. I talked about the heading up to the drops and then over to the jumps. How long does it take to do a personalized suspension setup with you?
Yeah, usually a suspension setup will run roughly an hour. They typically go a little bit over, but a little bit over an hour usually is the typical time that we spend setting that up.
Not
So, and
bad.
it's pretty comprehensive. And one of the things that's pretty cool is you get to see what it's like on real trails. A lot of guys are pretty familiar with those trails, um, but you get a very real life experience of what it's going to feel like on the real trails, not just a parking lot setup. So,
Yeah, that was
pretty
that
cool
was really
setup.
So about the same as it was before, about an hour long. You want to set aside the time. I let everybody know that you need to contact you to set up an appointment because that takes some
Yes.
time to like set aside that time for you. What is the current price on that going for to have that done?
Yeah. So suspension setups right now, we're running those at 125 for a setup.
Nice. Dude, not bad at all.
Yeah.
That's killer.
Yeah.
That's killer. And
So
oh man, I can already see we're already at an hour, but there's a few more questions. Do you have a little bit more time? Can I steal you for a
yeah,
little
we
bit
can,
more
we
time?
yeah, we can go for a little bit.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. Uh, Da Dude is saying, does your conversion only fit a Fox 38?
No, it's currently we'll work on 38s, Zebs, 36s, and the older, previous to my 23 Pike and Lyric.
Okay. So quite a few different ones.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So yeah, a lot of different options. Da Dude, what's up? I love that. I love that question. And that was a good question because yeah, we were talking about the other bikes at 38. So yeah, you have more options for sure. And Electric Trail Surfer was right on that. He says, yes, I believe so. And he was right. He's saying, Mike, how's the new shop? Yeah, let's get into that a little bit. You used to be with Gravity Bikes, Craig, you and Craig, and then you kind of like things happened. I know he needed to move shop or something, and then you kind of broke off and was able to go back to your thing. How's the new setup going for you?
yeah. So right now things are working pretty good. It's been allowed me to do a lot more things that I haven't been able to do in the past. So it allows me to work a little bit more direct with customers, and then it has allowed me to take on and work a lot with shops that I couldn't work with before because it was a conflict of interest for other shops.
Oh yeah.
Um, so that's been pretty cool to be able to take on those new shops and work with them as well. And that's opened up a whole other avenue of things that we can do, partnering with shops to be able to do things now like trail work and sponsor events and get out with kids events and be active in that avenue that I wasn't able to do before. So that's been pretty cool since I've been on my own to be able to kind of take those on and be able to give back a little bit. Definitely, if you follow us on Instagram and Facebook, we're going to be posting about some of those events and whatnot that we're going to be doing and partnering with to get out and get more people involved in trail work and event sponsorship. So we're actually going to be at the EVA Vale Lake Takeover next weekend on the 27th. So definitely we'll be working with the veterans and fundraiser for them for PTSD and whatnot out there.
Oh,
So that'll be cool when people can come out and join that ride.
that one's cool. Yeah, Jacob Cruz and the whole team EVA. That's definitely good cause for the vets, helping them
Yep.
out there with Team EVA for PTSD, helping the vets get back to some normalcy and getting out on bikes, which we all know is so fun, so fun. Electric Trail Surfer is saying, 125, worth every penny to do this with Mike. So yes, he's done this with you before, and I can vouch for that too. I've done a couple of them, and it's always fun too. It's a good time. And then I start doing things I'm not supposed to do, and you're like, Mark, stick to the script, which
No,
is
the cool
awesome.
thing is now being out at Oaks, we can take off, and if we've got some extra time, we can go hit some trails and just see how it feels, and some trails and extra drops and jumps and play around area we've got out there available to us now. It's kind of cool.
I love it. I know you secretly, whenever Mike's on in the squad and we're out there having a good time riding bikes, like not work related at all, just out having fun. Whenever he drops in behind me, I'm like, sweet. I know he's checking out the balance of my bike too. So part of it's sweet, and the other part of it's like, oh god damn it, now I feel pressure. JCC MTB is saying Mike is the best. My suspension is feeling so dialed after my service. There you go, another happy camper.
Awesome.
Love
Glad you guys are stoked on it.
I love it. So I know we leaned a lot about, servicing the getting the tune to it personalized for you, but you do way more than that. In fact, you and I were talking about, and this goes way over my head. So Mike, please let them know, like something with the evac vacuum system that's like completely like nobody really has that. So you're able to really dial in things very accurately when you're servicing suspension. And then while we're at it, how often do people should they bring their bike in for servicing? Because I never before I met you and learned more, I was just like until it breaks, but I'm learning that's not good.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things we're working on is educating customers and shops, to follow the service intervals. They really are important. The recommendations are there for a reason. And so typically your air shocks need at least a basic seal and air service at 50 hours, or every 50 hours. And then your damper services, your full rebuilds, which is what we focus on. Those need to happen at somewhere between 150 and 200 hours or once a year, whichever comes first on those. And then as far as some of the technology and stuff that we're using, over the years, I've been able to use quite a few different machines and technologies and things that are out there that different manufacturers are using. And this time around, I've got to purchase all of my own equipment. And so all of the dampers should be vacuum bled as opposed to hand bled. If you follow some of the manufacturers, they're going to give you little hand bleed instructions because they're assuming that you guys are doing it at home. But when we're doing it professionally, we use vacuum bleeders, and it eliminates every little air bubble that is inside of it. And the vacuum bleeder that I use allows me to actually visually see that. I've used some of the other ones from other popular manufacturers, and they work well, but I can't see what's going on inside. So I can't guarantee that there's no air inside of that shock. I'm just hoping that it did the best it could. Whereas the system I've got now, not only can I see it, but I can control every step of the process. So if I see a tiny little bubble come out, I can continue the vacuum process until I see no more tiny little bubbles come out, and then add the fill pressure, and then cycle that until again there's no more air bubbles, and I can continue to run as many cycles as I need until it's perfect, because I can visually see it. And it's the first bleeding system that I've used where I can actually visually see that the whole time while I'm bleeding it. So I'm really excited about that, and how good it is. The feedback from the customers are telling me that their shocks feel better than when they come from the factory. So pretty
Wow.
stoked on that equipment.
Wow, we're looking at for the folks that are on iTunes and Spotify, we're looking at I think the device you're talking about with the see-through, you could see everything in there. Look at that thing go.
That
Holy
that's
cow.
actually that's a shock that they built out of plexi, and it's showing what cavitation is on that one. And
Oh,
so that's an example of cavitation, and that's when you have either air inside your damper oil, or when you remove your nitrogen pressure, you get cavitation, and that's when your oil turns to foam, and then your damper no longer functions properly because foam doesn't work through valves very well.
right.
Um, so as you
Right.
can see, it turned to foam right now, and obviously it's not functioning very well. You can see the shock just working its way towards one end of the stroke. And
Wow.
then they add some nitrogen back in and get that cavitation to go away. But
Wow. That's
Yeah,
bananas. That's
that's what'll happen
cool.
if you do end up with air bubbles inside your damper oil. So
Wow. Wow. So when you are hooking everybody's bike back up, their suspension back up, you're able to see the air bubbles and make sure everything's vacked out and dialed. So this is crazy because I know we're going a little longer today. This is just a wealth of information. I'm having people here on Instagram already DMing me. They're saying, "Hey Mark, do you have Mike Boone's contact for ST Tuned? I've been trying to contact since he left Gravity. Thank you." That was from Spo Lasik. Yes, definitely. Mike, how do people get a
yep.
hold of you?
Yeah, so the best way to get a hold of me is through my phone number, which is 714-213-3083. So that's our phone number. Also, you can find us on Instagram at st_tuned MTB. And that will also allow you to message us. Our phone number is also listed there. You can also find us, same handle on Facebook. And our contact information is listed there. We do have a website in the works, not completed yet, but we do have a website coming, and that will be sttunedmtb.com once that's up and running.
Okay, okay.
So
So the best way to get a hold of
definitely
you,
phone's the best.
phone's the best. And I'm assuming probably
Yep.
text message is probably the quickest.
Text or phone call, either way. It
Okay.
depends. Yeah, if I'm elbows deep in oil, you're gonna have to wait till I'm done rebuilding that shock, and then I'll get back to you. Um, Megan runs my Instagram and social media, so she may respond back to you on that. If she has questions, she'll run out and holler at me and say, "Hey, how do you want me to respond to this person?"
Okay.
But yep,
I love it. I love it. That number again, folks, is area code 714-213-3083. Contact Mike Boone for suspension setup, suspension tuning, and suspension rebuild and suspension service. Pretty much anything suspension is where you want to go. What are you seeing the most right now in the business? What's coming through the most right now?
right now, a little bit of everything. Um, obviously, the X2s are always a popular one to get rebuilt. DHX2s from Fox, popular. A lot of it is just because Fox has such a huge corner of the market, that
Mm,
obviously we're going to see more Fox shocks than anything else.
that makes
Um,
sense.
but yeah, it's a little bit of everything. I'm definitely seeing a lot more like XC and trail than I used to before. Everything before was like enduro and long travel stuff. And now that I've been able to kind of reach out and work with more shops, obviously I'm getting a better kind of preview, if you will, of the overall market. So I'm getting a bigger sampling of everything that's out there. So I try to keep as many seal kits in stock as I can. I went through and counted the other day, and I think I've got over 60 different seal kits that I keep in stock, so that I can try to have as quick a turnaround time as possible as I continue to try to have that 2 to 3 day turnaround. It means having a whole lot of seal kits in stock to be able to try to maintain that.
Yeah, absolutely. For folks that are listening in right now, shout out some of the seal kits that you have, just so they know if they have that suspension, they can contact you.
Yeah, so any of the popular, Rock Shocks, Sids, Pikes, Lyrics, Zebs on the fork sides of things, Deluxe, Super Deluxe, the Vivids. In fact, we even did a cool one. If you follow us on Instagram, we did a cool custom tune of one of the new 23 plus or 24 plus Vivids that most people haven't seen the inside of yet. So that was a pretty cool setup on those. And then obviously all the Foxes, the Flowdexes, the DPS, the CTDs, 34, 32, 34, 36, 38. Yep, there it is right there. So that was a custom valving we did. That rider is actually a factory transition rider that goes
Phew.
through one of the shops that I work with. And so I was custom tuning it for him. And he was pretty stoked on those because the Vivids are tuned really soft. So that's been a pretty common tune request, is to firm up compression on the Vivids for sure.
Wow, I love that. I
So
love that.
yeah,
Yeah. That's cool. So pretty much everything. When
So
you're listing
everything's,
it all out there.
yeah, Fox and Rock Shocks have got pretty much all the seals that we can get our hands on those. We do some of the, try to keep some of the DVO stuff in stock, some of the Olins in stock. I've got some Marzocchi stuff. Um, dare I say it, I've even got some of the stuff for the Sur-on forks and whatnot that are out there. So
Sweet.
we
Yeah,
do.
there's a lot of those out and about that probably
Yep.
need servicing. These kids just run those things into the ground. Electric Trail Server saying, Mike, do you have a coil in stock for a 190 Zeb Ultimate?
That I don't. If you were looking for the for my coil conversion kit, unfortunately does not go to a 190. It is limited at 180. I'm hoping that I can source another coil that will allow me to go longer than 180, but currently my limit on my current systems is 180.
If for some reason somebody wants to replace something that they have, like if this is a Ultimate 190 is just a replacement, can you get it for them? Even if you don't have it in stock, can you order stuff like that?
Well, for my system, it just doesn't go that long. But if
Got
you're
it.
using, like, for example, the Smash Pot, the new V2 that just came out, that goes up to 200 millimeters. So it goes all the way up to the downhill forks now, this newest one they just released. So that the Smash Pot can go up to 200 mil. So the Smash Pots are available in the 190 and 200s.
Man, I think I'll stay at the 180 because I can purchase 2 of yours for the price of 1 of theirs. Okay, that is awesome, dude. That is so much stuff. So, recommended time frame of getting things done. I know you were saying like, up to so many hours and this and that, but if we're not tracking the hours and we just kind of want to go off of things, I know sometimes like with your like fire smoke alarms, you do it every time the time changes, right? Twice a year. But
Yeah.
bike park season is right around the corner. I saw that Snow Valley is opening up this weekend, which is
Yep.
cool. Should people come in and get their stuff serviced before park season just to make sure everything's running? Or what do you recommend there if we're not counting hours?
Yeah, absolutely. If you definitely haven't had your shock or fork serviced recently, within at least probably the last 10, 10 months or so, definitely if you're over a year, you for sure need it. But if it's been a minute and you're heading into bike park season, you're definitely going to want to do it beforehand. Bike parks really, you can cut your intervals in half at least. Some guys I've had to rebuild 2 to 3 times during bike park season just because of the forces that are placed at the bike park on your shock. So the forces are significantly higher running through bike park season. So definitely you need it more frequently and to be prepared going into it.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And for the people that are listening in, I know we have folks from all over, which is crazy that people listen to the show from all over the country.
Yep.
If somebody tunes into this and they're like, dude, I listen to what this guy says. I like what this guy says. I'd like to get service, but I don't have a suspension specialist close to me that I even know or trust, or there just isn't one. Can they send their equipment to you to still have it worked on?
Yes, absolutely. They can remove their fork and shock, and if they're comfortable mailing it back and forth, they can mail it to me, and we can service it and send it back to them. Absolutely, that's something a service that we offer.
Okay, that's awesome. Damn, Mike, that is awesome, dude. I I think that's is there anything else that in closing that we didn't cover that you want to share?
I think I'm good. It's time for dinner.
That was freaking amazing. That was amazing. Mike, dude, Mike Boone, thank you so much from ST Tune. This has been episode 175. I hope you guys found this one valuable. Thank you all for the questions. Mike, thank you all for the answers. And yeah, I'm gonna be kind of like trying little clicks here and there. But like my baseline is good because you set me up. But
Yep.
I'm gonna try to a little bit, little bit. I definitely took that away from the show. It's okay to like just one click at a time, see how it feels, and then ultimately, if I get lost, I'm just bringing it in.
Yeah, you've got your baseline you can go back to because everybody who gets their setup, they've got that card with their setup on it. So you don't have to worry too much about messing your settings up. If you get lost, you can always at least refer back to those baseline settings and get it back to where you know it's consistent and good.
Dude, that's the truth. Okay, so I flew to where was it, Mike? I flew to a bike park, Highlands Bike Park, I think, and my capper was in the bike bag. For sure, dials got turned when it was in travel, and I think I called you guys because I didn't have the card on me, and I was like,
Hmm.
Mike, I don't know what my settings are. I think I need some more pressure in here too. And I was racing a downhill race that day, and you had the card on file. Luckily for me, it was still in the computer, and you're able to send that to me. And that was a game changer. I was low on air somehow in travel. That got messed up. My clicks were off by 3, so I was able to get those back. And then just mentally, it made me feel like, dude, this is great. Very, very
Yeah,
good.
absolutely. So yeah, I do keep a record of everybody's setups that we do. So just in case you do lose it, it may take me a little bit to go dig it out and find it, but I do keep a record of everybody that I set up on the bike and get you your settings so that if something happens, we can get you back to those baseline settings for sure.
That's awesome. Oh man, I wish you the best of luck, Mike, with everything. Let's get on a ride soon. Will you be at Sky Park for the Ride for Autism in a couple weeks?
That
Or
is
Women's
one that
MTB?
we are planning on trying to make it up for that.
Sweet. Hopefully see you up
Yep,
there for some laps up at Sky Park, baby.
that would be awesome.
That
That
would
would be
be
awesome
awesome.
for sure.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. This has been episode 175. Mike
Yep,
Boon, baby. And we'll see you guys out on the trail. And
sounds good.
contact Mike
Thanks,
if you
Mark.
need anything suspension wise. He's got it dialed. Literally. All right. See you guys all in the next one. Here we go. And